Whatever, it's mostly fine. Alright, who's here? I found my place. I'm just trying to figure out what the recap is. That's right. I remember. Pretty much just sitting here looking at stuff until people turn up. If I was in any way professional about this, I would probably edit videos after I go live with them. I don't know. Stream at scheduled times. Do literally anything other than just go live on a whim. Hey, how's it going? Danny, what's up? I'm losing my voice a little bit, but it'll be fine. Here it is. Cardigan. It's a nice one too, it's blue. Oh. Yeah. It's the problem with being this mercurial, or not even mercurial, really just doing things as and when I have the energy. Nice, that's awesome. I'm gonna really try and sleep tonight because I've noticed that treatment is not very good if I'm awake all night the night before, so really want to get that sleep. It's gonna be pretty good, I think. Alright, recap. Basically, I mean, you guys remember. Franklin Good, he shows up, he's like, I'm going to destroy the Fear family because of the feud between our families that they don't remember, but I do. I'm going to trick them all into liking me, and I'm going to trick both the daughters into loving me. And then Kate comes rocking up like, Frank and I are getting married. And Elizabeth's like, the fuck you say? Me and Frank getting married, not you, like me and Frank. And Kate goes tearing off through the woods, and Elizabeth goes tearing off through the woods, and somehow Kate ends up dead with a knitting needle through her heart. Right through the sternum, into the heart, knitting needle. Everyone thinks Elizabeth did it. Elizabeth knows she didn't. So Franklin tells her that Kate had gone mad and killed herself in that classic fashion that we've all heard of, the knitting needle through the heart. And Franklin's like, we're going to run away together. And Elizabeth's like, yeah, we're going to run away together. And then he thinks in his head, for our benefit, actually, I am going to kill her. Like, that was going to be in doubt for us in some way. Yeah, Lizzie's completely fucked in every way except how she probably would like to be. So, I'm going to pick it up here. It's usually easy to recap for people who arrive late. I don't even know if I can use the word late when I give this little notice. Sorry, I'm so itchy. I trimmed the fringe on this and I've got little bits of synthetic hair all through my clothes. They're really, really itchy. I should have used a cape or a bit of plastic, or I don't know. Doesn't matter. Chapter 26. Chapter 26. Simon. Wow, I'm really losing it. Simon paced the house as if in a daze, weighted down with grief and sadness, his mind whirring with thoughts of Kate's death. Kate's improbable death. His parents were locked in their room. Through the door, he could hear his father's heavy boots on the floor, his mother weeping and wailing for her daughters. Elizabeth, too, was shut in her room. Simon put his ear to her door. He heard her scurrying around. She's yellow wallpapering. What could he be doing? He wondered. What could she be doing? He wondered. He was afraid she'd lost her mind. Evening fell. No one prepared supper. No one thought of eating. Simon's grief gave way to uneasy restlessness. I have to get out of this house, he thought, or I will go mad. The sky was still hovering over the trees as Simon made his way out of the house, but once in the woods, the darkness surprised him. Everything bad happens in the woods. It was midsummer, and the leaves were at their thickest. They blocked out most all of the fading sunlight. Simon found the woods unnaturally still. The daytime animals had already hidden away for the night, but the nocturnal creatures had not yet crept out of their dens to hunt. It's not like a metaphor for anything, really. Simon walked on, deeper and deeper into the woods. All he wanted was to put his house and family behind him. He found himself at the clearing with the 2 flat stones. The woods were almost completely dark now. Simon sat on the bigger stone, the one that had once been his throne. He patted the smaller stone beside it. That had been Kate's. Kate was dead now. Kate is dead. Italics. He realized he could not escape from his grief. It's a family of detectives. Simon peered through the darkness, staring at the spot where he had found Kate's body. A cold chill ran down his back as the ugly sight returned to him. Kate's eyes, so glassy, so empty. The needle poking out of her chest. The blood had spread down the front of her dress. The blood had spread like evil, Simon thought. Hey, Josh. Simon has gone to the woods to think about how Kate is dead. Because she's dead. He's worked it out. The blood has spread like evil, Simon thought. And now there is evil everywhere. It lives inside my family's house right now. Evil lives inside Elizabeth and Frank. It lives in these woods, in the air around me. He took a big gulp of air, then exhaled. It lives inside me, too, he thought. I can feel it. There is evil living inside me. Then the deep silence of the woods was broken. Simon heard a noise. The snap of a twig somewhere nearby. Simon froze. He listened. Was it an animal? A deer? Snap! The noise was behind him. How had it moved so quickly, so quietly? Simon wanted to turn to look, but he was paralyzed with fear. Fear. Something grabbed him from behind. A claw! Pain shot through his shoulder. The claw dug deeper. Simon turned at last. He took one look at his attacker, and the blood drained from his face. He screamed. Obviously that's a chapter break. Chapter 27. Old Aggie! The exact same person it was last time there was a snapping twig in the woods. Simon felt the blood throb at his temples. He had never seen the old woman so close up. Kind of sounds like he's turned on, but, you know, that's his business. I'm not here to judge. Her face was hidden by a black hood. In one wrinkled hand, she held the cane she always carried. The fingers of the other hand were covered with rings. They dug into Simon's shoulder. Aggie was so stooped that her head was even with Simon's as he sat before her. Simon tried to stand, but with one wrinkled hand the old woman held him in place. The pain in Simon's shoulder deepened. "Do not go," she commanded in a gravelly voice. "Hi, Jesse. I'm losing my voice a little bit, so here's hoping it holds out till the end of the video." Shaking, Simon tried to calm down. "It is only an old woman," he told himself. "Only an old woman." "Sorry I screamed like that. You startled me," he stammered. Old Aggie slowly let go of his shoulder. Simon felt her long fingernails pull out of his skin. Jesus. Yeah, Simon thinks that deer are just like guys that look different. She held out her bony, jeweled hand. "Give me your hand," she croaked. Simon hesitated. He saw her black eyes glowing like coal under her hood. "Your hand," she repeated in her deep, raspy voice. Simon obeyed. He offered her his trembling hand. She took it firmly in her own and bent close to his palm, her long, crooked nose almost grazing his hand. Finally, she released his hand and trained her eyes on his face. Simon's heart pounded as he waited to see what would happen next. "Hey, Josh." Was it an animal? A deer? A different kind of guy? A seahorse? Unlikely. Could be. "The children said she would kill us and eat our hearts," he thought. Simon has encountered old Aggie in the woods. He thought, remembering his childhood fears of old Aggie. But that had to be a foolish childhood tale. Aggie cleared her throat. "Hear me, Simon Fear, and hear me well." How does she know my name? Simon wondered. He did not dare to ask her. It doesn't sound like there are many people nearby. She probably knows everybody's name. "You have allowed a man named Franklin Good into your home. Am I right?" croaked old Aggie. Cool. Simon nodded. "That was foolish of you. He will destroy you all. You must stop him." Simon swallowed. Old Aggie continued. "Franklin Good killed your sister Kate. At this very moment, he plots the death of Elizabeth." Simon was shaken. Could the old woman be speaking the truth? My head got itchy. "Fear," old Aggie murmured. "Fear. A terrible name. A cursed name." "What do you mean?" Simon demanded. "Why do you say that, old woman?" "Rude." "Your fate lies in your name," old Aggie replied, her face hidden in the darkness of her hood. "The letters in your name, they can be rearranged to spell fire. Fear. Fire. Fear. Fire." She repeated the two words several times in her croaking voice, chanting them to sound like curses. "I do not understand," Simon confessed. "That is how your family will come to its end," old Aggie rasped. "What? How?" he demanded. "How?" "By fire," she murmured. "Fear. Fire. You shall meet your end by fire." Simon gasped as old Aggie pointed a long, terrible finger into his face. "You are under a curse," she cried. "A curse cast by the Goods, and by your own evil history. Now you have allowed a Good into your home, into your family. Your suffering will know no end, Simon Fear." You might say your suffering will be legendary, even in hell, but I couldn't possibly. "But what can I do?" Simon choked out in a shrill, tight voice. "What?" The old woman reached into the folds of her long black robe and pulled out a small silver dagger, its handle studded with dark rubies. This all seems legit. "Take this dagger," she whispered. "Its tip is poisoned. You have only to scratch the skin of your enemy with it, and he will die. Simon took the dagger from her with a trembling hand. I'm not clever enough to use this, he should have said. Be careful, she warned him. The dagger will only work once. Do not waste the poison. I will not, Simon promised, gazing at the dagger as if it were alive. Old Aggie nodded. Go now. Hurry before it is too late. Simon jumped up and began to run through the dark woods. When he glanced back at the clearing, the old woman had disappeared. All gone behind a tree. We don't know. Had she told him the truth? Was the rest of his family in danger? In danger from Frank Good? Or was the old woman as crazy as the children always claimed? A yellow glow led him back to his house. He emerged from the woods and saw the kitchen ablaze with a light. The rest of the house was in darkness. Simon burst into the kitchen doorway and stopped. It's red flag time. Red flag means I'm discussing gore of some kind. Bit of a spoiler, but you know. Simon burst into the kitchen doorway and stopped. He stared down and saw his mother sprawled in a dark puddle of blood on the floor. Simon's father was slumped over the kitchen table. Bright red blood had poured from a wound in his side and lay pooled on the floor. Simon! Elizabeth's voice. Simon raised his eyes from the horrifying sight of his murdered parents. Elizabeth was cowering in a corner by the hearth. Frank Good stood before her, an axe raised over her head. The axe that he had used to murder Simon's parents. The blade was stained blood red in the firelight. Simon cried out as Frank let the axe fall. Oh! So Lizzie Borden was just copying the work of a superior male mind. That makes sense. It's not too shocking. No. Chapter 28. Simon tried to cry out, but the sound caught in his throat. Elizabeth uttered a high-pitched howl. Ow. Look, you're a type howl. I'm going to do a stupid-sounding howl. The axe blade made a whistling, slicing sound as it fell. It grazed Elizabeth's head, chopping off a clump of her hair. I mean, sharp axe, pretty good. As she began to sob, Frank tossed his head back and laughed. I don't think he disregarded her advice. I think he just got home too late. And now he's like seeing this and having to deal with this bullshit. Frank tossed his head back and laughed. Ha ha ha! Just teasing you, Elizabeth, he said. But the next one is for real. Elizabeth pressed herself against the wall and panted. Without realizing it, she had wrapped her hand around the pendant she had found in the garden. We know what pendant that is, don't we? Frank turned to Simon and smiled. The fears nearly won, he said. Your family nearly managed to destroy the Goods forever. That is what your ancestors wanted, is it not? To wipe us from the face of the earth? No. I mean, they do now, but... Gripped with the horror of the scene he had walked in on, Simon struggled to breathe. The last trickles of his father's blood onto the floor roared like a rushing waterfall in Simon's ears. Frank took a step towards him. In the end, though, there can be only one. Frank continued slowly, calmly. The Goods will survive. I am the last of my family, but that is enough. I have served my ancestors well. I have lived to destroy the fears. He took another step towards Simon, the axe blade red and gleaming in the firelight. Simon's trembling hand squeezed the handle of the silver dagger hidden under his coat. He hoped old Aggie had been telling the truth about the dagger's power. Frank hoisted the axe high, With a loud grunt, he swung the axe down towards Simon's head. Elizabeth's scream pierced the air. Ah! Simon ducked out of the way as the axe blade dug deeply into the tabletop. Simon had the advantage and drew the dagger from under his coat, lunged forward, and scratched the blade across Frank's arm. A tiny red line, as thin as a hair, appeared along Frank's forearm. He stared at it, and then at Simon, and he burst out laughing. "Ha ha ha ha! Is that how you hope to stop me, Simon?" he cried. "With a scratch from a dagger?" Simon stood panting, his chest heaving. Frank laughed. "Ha ha ha ha! He does the same one every time. You can tell it's copy-pasted." With every sound Frank uttered, Simon felt his heart grow colder. He raged with hate for Frank and for every good who had ever lived. Frank turned back to Elizabeth. "If you are going to fight me, Simon, I will have to take care of your little sister first," he said. Elizabeth had darted away from the corner, but there was nowhere for her to run. Yeah, they had no idea. The Fears had no idea about this. And yeah, Frank should have been having as many kids as he could. Just like as a failsafe. Anyway, Frank easily pulled the axe blade from the tabletop and took a step toward Elizabeth. Then another. "Simon, help me!" Elizabeth cried. "Fucking help me!" The voice isn't that important anymore. Frank took another step toward her. He started to raise the axe. The old woman's magic. It hadn't worked, Simon realized. I am not strong enough to pull the axe from Frank's grip. I am not strong enough to fight him. I foolishly counted on old Aggie's magic, and now Elizabeth and I are going to die. Across the room, Frank uttered a triumphant roar as he moved in on Elizabeth, his axe blade raised high. Rah! It's not magic, Simon. It's poison. It's science. Simon! Fucking stop him! Chapter 29. Elizabeth's terrified cry rang in Simon's ears. He started to leap at Frank, hoping to pull him down from behind. But Simon stopped halfway across the kitchen and stared in amazement as the axe fell from Frank's hand, ringing against the stone hearth. Frank's eyes rolled back in his head. He uttered a startled cry and crumpled to the floor. Elizabeth's eyes flew open. Her entire body was trembling. Simon bent over Frank's body and examined him. Dead. Frank was dead. The poison had worked. Simon ran to comfort his sister. He wrapped his arms around her and held her until she stopped shaking. "We're safe now," he whispered. "We are both safe." Elizabeth nodded, crying softly, and buried her head in his chest. Simon gazed over her shoulder at the gruesome scene in the kitchen. His mother and father lay in congealing pools of blood. They had always been kind, good people, Simon knew. They were kind and took in a starving drifter, and he murdered them in return. Kate had never harmed anyone in her life, and she had been brutally, coldly murdered too. Goodness is weakness, Simon told himself. That is clear to me now. Goodness is weakness. Only evil can fight evil. Elizabeth and I will leave this house, he decided, holding his sister and letting her cry. This house holds only memories of horror for me. Simon is becoming an anime protagonist right now. It's an important moment in a boy's life. Elizabeth's tears slowed. "Oh, Simon," she said. "You saved my fucking life." She touched the silver amulet again. "We're fucking orphans now. You and I are the only ones left alive. I cannot help feeling that this fucking magical fucking amulet has something to do with saving us." The silver disc flashed in the firelight. The deep blue stones glowed like human eyes. Elizabeth pulled the pendant over her head. She gazed at it and then held it out to Simon. "I want you to have it," she said. "Please, take it. As Poe saved me. From now on, that power must be yours." I have to do a voice like that, otherwise my voice will give out. Simon bent forward, and Elizabeth slid the silver chain over his head. Immediately he felt warm. He closed his eyes, but instead of darkness he saw flames, hot red fire. I know what flames are, but thank you. The flames faded quickly, and then Simon saw only Elizabeth's tear-stained face watching him. He led his sister away from the scene of horror, out of the kitchen, into the cool night air. He thought of the flames, and old Aggie's words echoed in his mind. "The letters in your name spell fire, and that is how your family will meet its end, by fire." "I will not let it happen," Simon thought grimly as he and Elizabeth stared at the full moon rising. "Old Aggie's prediction will not come through, or even come true. It won't come through or come true." Oh, she thinks she's protecting him by giving him the amulet. She's like, "I feel like this saved our lives. You have it." And he's like, "Yeah, I mean, I had a vision when I put it on, but otherwise it seems legit." "I have the power to stop her prediction. I can change the future." The last good is dead, he thought with satisfaction. The feud is over now. The curse has been erased. All except for the fire. The fire in my name. And get ready for an incredible galaxy brain from Simon. The amulet burned against his chest as he thought about the fire, the letters in his name. And then, suddenly, he knew. He knew exactly what he had to do. It was simple, he thought. I will change my name. I will change the letters so that they no longer spell fire. That will end the curse once and for all. The last known good. Yeah, I think we've established Simon's not... Well, he is the thinker of the family, but that's... doesn't say much. Elizabeth gripped his hand tightly. Oh, she's still afraid, he thought sadly. She does not understand that there is no need to be afraid anymore. There are no more goods, no more feud, no more curse. We are safe, and this time it really is over. I am the one who can beat the ancient curse. I am powerful. I will change the future, beginning with my name. I am no longer Simon Fear, F-I-E-R. Now and forever, I will be known as Simon Fear, F-E-A-R. It's got more impact on the page. Hang on, Flora needs in. Why doesn't he change his name to Simon No Curse? Village of Shadyside, 1900. The candle burned low as Nora continued to write. She dreaded the moment when the candle would sputter and die, but even more she dreaded the dawn. She glanced at the page she'd just written and sighed. If only Simon had been right, she thought. If only it had stopped right there, then everything would be different. Perhaps I might even be happy now, living with the man I love. Maybe he would still be alive, ... Well, no, because if Simon had been right, you wouldn't exist because you're a good. And Simon thought he'd eliminated all the good. Fuck it. Two families, alike in deductive reasoning. She broke off her thoughts and wiped the tears from her eyes. There is no time for crying now, she told herself. I have much more to write. The story is far from over. For now comes the tale of Simon Fear, the most horrifying chapter of all. Waiting for the next page. Nope, that was the end. We finished the secret. We did it. Yeah, Simon No Curse would be a great name. I think he really missed. So next is actually, the next book is actually called The Burning. I got it wrong. The first book was called The Betrayal. So maybe I'll call this one The Betrayal. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But anyway, next, the Fear Street Saga, The Burning, coming October 1993. 93? Shit, I was younger. I was way younger than 10 when I read these. Cool. I'm sure it shaped me into the very normal person I am. Young Simon falls in love with the beautiful and wealthy debutante Angelica Pierce, and he'll do anything in his power to make her his wife. But then, after moving his family to Shadyside, Simon discovers that only a precious few will escape the Fear Mansion's gruesome horror alive, and so it is left to Nora to tell the truth and bury the family curse before it buries her. Yeah, I will call it The Betrayal, and that will actually be a betrayal, so it'll be pretty good. The Burning for real. Yeah, I'll call it The Betrayal. Because I betrayed you all by getting the name wrong. But yeah. Thank you for hanging out with me for this one. If I can find a copy of 13 Tales of Terror, Point Horror, or its follow-up, Point Horror 13 More Tales of Terror, that would be great, because some of them are actually quite freaky. I wonder if they have the one about the vampire, because that's actually quite a good one. Anyway. Oh, there's a lot of betrayal and burning and secrets. You can call any book anything. But yeah, there is a scene that's particularly gruesome that I thought was going to be in this book, but it isn't, so that's something to look forward to. Thank you guys for being here, and I'm going to wrap this up while I still have a bit of my voice. And I'll see you tomorrow, should that be a thing that I do. The Burning Betrayal Secrets 1 to 3. The Burn Trail. The Secret Burn Trail. Thank you. Thank you guys. Alright. Gonna end it there. Good night.